For the last couple of years, Neural DSP has been a company at the top of guitar plugins and amp modelers with their pretty revolutionary quad cortex. And then last year, in 2024, they came out with this guy. And I finally caved and decided to check it out because in my personal experience looking at things, this Nanocortex, the quad cortex amp captures seem to have, in my opinion, the best amp sounds of any modeler I've ever heard. They always sound kind of, I don't know, they're almost like 3D. And I decided, what the heck, after years of using an HX Stomp, I've been using the Hot Tone Ampero series of products for probably the last year-ish. I decided, this is my job, it's a tax write-off. Why not pick up this guy and see what it's all about? And I'm so glad I did. But before I tell you more about why I switched to the Nanocortex, why don't we hear what it sounds like? So what you just heard was me using this and my Line 6 DL4 Mark II to get that loop going. But the main amp sound is a capture of a 65 Blackface Deluxe Reverb. The reverb that you hear, that's gorgeous, is a model of the very famous Lexicon reverb that I'm in love with. I think it sounds incredible. But that was the clean guitar sound, and then the dirty sound was actually the Rev. It's a capture of a Rev Joey Landreth combo amp. It's kind of Fendery, whatever, but I happened to find this capture. I'm a big fan of Joey Landreth and his playing, and he's a fellow Canadian, so shout out to that. But I just found it, thought it sounded great, and that's my kind of edge of breakup sound there. So I switched to the Nanocortex again. I decided to try it out with the idea that if it's not amazing, I can return it. But within about 30 minutes of messing around with this thing, I was completely and utterly sold. So this works differently than a lot of other modelers. This is not a modeler. This is a capture player. It does, I guess, model some effects in it. It has some basic distortions, delay, chorus, and some great sounding reverbs. The algorithms in this are incredible for reverb. But in my recent experience with the Hot Tone Ampero, I was actually using NAM captures rather than the models built in, because I find that captures feel and sound a little bit more organic to my ear. The problem that I was finding with NAM captures is that it's a little bit like digging in the mines for a good one, whereas pretty much everything that I've checked out on the Nanocortex has been incredible. So this plays captures, not models, and basically what that means is that a capture, in my opinion, is a much more realistic and lifelike kind of sound, but you get significantly less, or I shouldn't say significantly less, but you do get less flexibility with it. So for example, the capture is the mic capturing the amp in that particular state, and then the bass, treble, and middle knob and everything will affect things, just not to the same degree that they would with a modeler. So it's not like from the ground up, it's from a different starting point, basically. And that's, again, hasn't been a problem for me yet. I've checked out probably 30 or 40 captures on this guy, and all of them have been either tweakable with what I want, or they just haven't been necessarily the capture for me, and that's fine. So one of the unique things about this versus other modelers and capture players is that it actually doesn't have a screen. Now, initially I thought I would hate this, because what that means is you have to use your phone and an app to do it. Obviously, there is a bunch of functionality built into the buttons on here, but you pretty much need to use your phone to be able to use it. But the thing that I have actually found with that is that I love it. So when I'm playing at home usually, it is on the floor. That's where my modeler lives, on the floor. And I don't really have a USB-C cable long enough to connect any of my modelers kind of comfortably. So rather than bending over and doing this, you can just do it on your phone, sitting up. So I actually really like that. And then on gigs, the thing that's really nice about this is that, I'm never really messing around with stuff on a gig. I would always go into it with my sounds and stuff kind of decided already. And the thing that I love about this is that it's actually, despite being a digital device, it is closer to the analog experience with an amp. So rather than having to flip through 2 or 3 menus, you can just tweak, like, oh, it's a little bit boomy in this room, or this, maybe the stage is wood and hollow and it's tough. So if you need to tweak sounds to the room, you can use these actual physical knobs, which is a much more pleasant experience. The other cool thing about this is that you have 4 sounds kind of readily available. Basically, it works in banks. So, for example, you can't really set this up the way that you might on a normal modeler, where you would be like, you can trigger a switch to turn on the distortion. These work with kind of fixed parameters. So basically what you do is you get your bank set up and you use these to switch between preset sounds. And that's kind of cool because you can completely throw out whatever amp you were using and go in. Like, for example, my crazy lead distorted sound is a capture of the Mateus Asado plugin. So I can go from having a Blackface Deluxe clean sound to having a cranked Bogner Shiva kind of sound. And that, to me, is really, really useful. And for me, that works really well in my workflow. I'm not a really big effect guy. The 2 main effects the only effect that I really commonly use on stage other than distortion is a freeze, which lets you sustain. I have a video on that pedal that I absolutely love up on my channel, but it's not really available in a bunch of the modelers, and it's not worth paying. Like, I think the Quad Cortex goes for about $2,500. It's not worth paying that for one effect that I'm going to use. So this thing only really does amps. You don't have the flexibility in that. But the caveat I find with that, or the trade-off I find, is that the amp sounds are absolutely incredible. I was not expecting it to be a big deal. I always use my wife as my barometer for whether things are good. My wife is wonderful, but she is not a musician. So I always think if she can hear the difference, then it's real. It's not just me losing my mind. And she thought that this sounded better than the Hot Tone Ampero that I was using earlier. She could hear the difference. And so you get 4 kind of presets at your disposal immediately. Another thing that I think these guys absolutely nailed, which is a very, very minor thing, but it's something that's happened to me a million times. On the back with your ins and outs, so you just have 1 input, 1 output. You do have a capture output, so if you have amps that you want to capture yourself and take, on a gig, this weighs significantly less than a tube amp, you can do so. It also has an expression MIDI switch, and when you go in, it has a headphone out and a USB-C jack. You can use this as an audio interface, or you can power it by USB-C, which is pretty cool. But one little tiny thing that these guys nailed that has been a problem for me on stages before. Most modelers put the expression foot switch knob here, and then the input is the second jack in. And I cannot tell you how many times I've set up my modeler on stage and freaked out that there was no sound, only to then look at the back of the dang thing and see that I'd plugged into the expression, and then what should have been the send to the amp or to the front of house was plugged into the input. So this, I love that this is all the way on the right. It works with my brain and I haven't had any issues with it. But yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts on this. I find the sounds in it to be of a higher quality. So if you're like me, and rather than needing a ton of effects and a ton of like signal chain customization and whatever, and you just want incredible amp sounds, this might be the perfect thing for you. It's relatively cheap. You get all of the kind of Quad Cortex amp sounds and access to pretty much anyone who's using one of these devices to capture their gear. There's pretty much every amp under the sun that you could want. Like, for example, I was shocked that the Joey Landreth Rev was even in here, because it's a relatively uncommon amp from a small Canadian, well, I shouldn't say small, but smaller boutique Canadian amp builder, but it has it, and all of them sound incredible. I'm so happy with this. It's not going anywhere. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It truly helps me out more than you could know. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, there's a link to get in touch with me down in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. If you're looking to support me and what I do here on the channel, you can check out my Patreon down below. All of my patrons get early access to videos as well as cool behind-the-scenes sneak peeks. It's stuff that I don't share anywhere else. And then, if you're looking for a different way to support me, you can also check out my ebooks or my video courses, also linked down in the description. It's a wonderful way to get some more in-depth educational content from me than I can go into in a 10 to 15 minute YouTube video. And last but not least, I have new videos coming out every single Monday and Thursday, so I hope I'll see you in the next one, and until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.